Alaska cruises are expensive, and for many, they're a once-in-a-lifetime trip. And you know what? We want to get it right, but there are many mistakes that you can make that we fell for too. Whether it's hidden costs, packing pitfalls, or things that you just don't expect, I'm here to help you with those surprises that many Alaska cruisers face. In this video, I'm going to share a few things that I wish I knew before our first Alaska cruise, and I'm going to share some pro tips to help yours be as smooth and stress-free as possible. The first thing I wish I knew is that all cruise ships are not built the same. Some are better for Alaska cruises than others. They have indoor pools, they have observation lounges, and they have promenade decks. So let's take a look at a few examples. This is the Sapphire Princess. We went on the Sapphire Princess last year with a one-way going out of Vancouver up to Whittier, Alaska. When we got to the glaciers, we would stand out on this promenade deck. That was one place that we would look, and that was great. The one thing to know is when you're on that promenade deck, for some reason, everybody kind of hangs out in the same place. Glaciers are big. Just walk a few steps and you'll get a spot without crowds. The next thing that was on the Sapphire Princess that worked out well for glacier viewing was the Stargazers Lounge. Not Stargazer, Star Walkers Lounge that's way up on deck 17. That was a great indoor space to go and glacier view. One pro tip is, if you're gonna go there, get up early to get your spot. Then another great place is the sanctuary. Now the sanctuary on Sapphire Princess is a for-fee area that you would pay for to go to, but you'd have a lot of area there that you could go and view the glaciers. Now if you go on Holland America's Koningsdam, they have the Crow Nest, which is also way up. Deck 12 is the highest deck they have, so that's a great place to go look for indoors viewing. And then they have the panorama deck on deck 10. That's another one that you can find a lot of area to go view the glaciers. So basically, scope the ship out. Maybe look at some deck plans online to get an idea before you even go of where you can go to view the glaciers. You want to think about what ship you want to go on, but you also want to think about what cruise line. There's only a few cruise lines that go to Glacier Bay. Glacier Bay is a national park, and so one of your days you'll go in and you'll go up to the different areas, and it's great. The cruise ship goes and they do a 360-degree turn, and you really get an opportunity to see the glaciers. And not only that, but the rangers along the way are pointing out different animals that they see on shore, or if they see whales, they point those out as well. So it's just a really great day. Now, what cruise lines go there? The premier cruise lines that go there are Holland America. They've been going to Alaska for over 75 years. Princess, which has been going for over 50 years. Cunard, so those are the premium cruise lines. In addition to that, there are different luxury cruise lines that go in. Something to know is only 2 large cruise ships or 3 smaller cruise ships can go into the bay any one day. So make sure when you go, here's a pro tip. Check to make sure that your cruise ship and the itinerary are going to Glacier Bay, because you don't want to miss it. One more cruise line that goes to Glacier Bay is Norwegian Cruise Line, which is not considered a premium cruise line. However, you really want to check their itineraries because they go on the shoulder season. So they go early in the year, and they go, not in the year, but in the season, early in the season and late in the season. But right in the heart of the season, you're probably not going to have Glacier Bay on your itinerary. I'm going to put a link to this video in the description below, and I'll pin it in the comments as well. It gives you a comparison of all the best cruise lines to sail to Alaska. In addition to which cruise line, I wish I knew what the different itineraries are that go to Alaska. So you can sail out of Vancouver or you can sail out of Seattle. If you sail out of Seattle, you actually don't have to have a passport with you unless you plan on going on the White Pass Railway when you get to Skagway, because you're always going to be in the United States. So if you're a United States citizen, you don't have to have a passport. Now, it might be a good idea to have one just in case something happens. I always like to bring my passport. Just so you know, I did ask my cruise my cruise agent, no, my travel agent, do you have to have a passport if you sail out of Seattle? He said, no. And in fact, even if your ship will stop in Victoria, you'll be able to go off the ship because you came in on a cruise ship. So I thought that was really interesting. Anyways, when you sail out of Seattle, you're gonna go this way. So you're gonna go up and you might cut over to Ketchikan. So you're gonna be on the inside passage a bit, or you might go all the way up and be in this open water. So that's something to know if you're sailing out of Seattle. The chances that you're gonna have to be in that open water are a little bit greater, and sometimes if you're worried about seasickness, you might take that into consideration. Now, when you go out of Vancouver, you might go this way and cut in, or some cruise lines actually go through the inside passage here along this path. So that would be another way that you can get to Ketchikan and then up to Skagway and Juneau, which are the 3 most popular stops when you're on a 7-day round trip cruise. Not all cruises are 7 days in Alaska. They do have 10-day, 11-day, 14-day, but most people take a 7-day cruise. So you might take a 7-day round trip, which really for first-time cruisers is the easiest because you're going in and out of the same port. But it's also fun to do a one-way because you go farther north. So our first year we did a round trip. Last year we did a one-way. So here's an example you can see. If you go out of Vancouver, how they'll cut through this area to get you to Ketchikan. And again, you can see that's more protected waters than coming out here. So going to Ketchikan, then going to Juneau, Skagway, going to Glacier Bay, and going to the Hubbard Glacier also. The Hubbard Glacier was really cool too. And then coming up, going through the College Fjords on the way to Whittier, or you might go into Seward, Alaska. You might be wondering, what side of the ship should I book if I have a balcony cabin or another cabin that I'm going to be able to see outside? If you're on a round trip, it doesn't matter because one way you're going to see it going and the other way you're going to see it coming back. So it doesn't really matter what side of the ship you're on if you're on a round trip. If you're on a one-way, then you'll want to book, let's just say you're going north. You're going to want to have the starboard side. You're going to want to have your cabin to be on the starboard or right side. And then if you're doing a southbound, you'll want to have your cabin on the port side or the left side because that way you're looking at land the whole time. Now, things to know, it's more expensive to have that side of the ship. And something else to know is if you are doing a one-way, flights might be better if you start in the north. So we had terrible flights coming home. So either book your flights really early or consider starting in the north and coming down to the south. Something else I wish I knew is to pay attention to the times that your ships in port and how long they're in port. Because you want to do fun things like different excursions when you're in port. And if you're in port and you're there for this amount of time, you may not be able to do everything you want to do. So let's look at an example from a Norwegian cruise line itinerary that's going out this year. So they're in Juneau from 2:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. So because it stays light so late that they stay in port for a long time and they stay late. Here in Skagway, it seems to me we're going to see some different examples, but Skagway has always been the longest day. So I think just because of the proximity to the other ports, they're able to stay in Skagway longer. So they're there 6:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then look here, the Ketchikan day is 7 a.m. to 1:15 p.m. So you're going to have to get off that ship really early to go, let's say, get to your excursion and get back to the ship in time to go. We'll talk about excursions a little later in this video so you know what are you going to do when you go into ports anyway. But let's take a look at one last example. So this is Princess, just one of the many itineraries, but I just want you to get an idea of what you're supposed to look for. So in Juneau, they're 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. Skagway, again, a long day, 7 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. And then Ketchikan, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So on Princess, you're in Ketchikan a little bit longer. Last year, we took a cruise tour, which means you combine your cruise with the land tour. And I would say, I really wish I knew more about that cruise tour before we sailed last year. And my husband, Noah, he's gonna join me.
Here I come.
On this part because It was a lot. It was a lot in a little bit of time. So we just want to kind of talk about just our overall experience. And, you know, as we were thinking about this portion of the video, it's a whole video in itself. So if you have not subscribe because it's coming up. It's going to probably be our next video.
Yeah, we got to do that.
Got to do it. Okay, so the first thing is that we both agreed it's very expensive to add those 3 days. It costs almost as much as your 7-day cruise. And so we took it one way going north.
Right.
And so you get off the ship where you get all your food included, super nice accommodations, entertainment, and then what?
Yes, off in Whittier, get on the buses, and then go for a drive to Anchorage.
Mm-hmm. So you go to Anchorage, and we spent a couple hours in Anchorage, and then we kept going, and we went to our first lodge, which was Mount McKinley Lodge. And these are all owned by Princess, and since Princess and Holland America are the same like family, Holland America also goes to that lodge. So from there, we went, and this is all quick. So you get to the lodge, like in the afternoon, unpack, get some food. There's food that you can buy at the lodges. There's different restaurants. The food is not included. We did an on your own. You can get a package where the food's included, but again, that adds to the cost. And then you have to have your luggage out by what, 6 a.m. the next morning?
Well, you had to put it out, I think, that night.
No, you could leave it.
Oh, well, you had to pack it at least.
You had to have it packed, ready to get out into the hall in the morning. So, because you're getting on the bus again, and then you'd get every time you were getting on and off the bus, you'd get like an envelope, and in the envelope it gave you your plans for the day. So then that day we ended up, the bus takes you to go on a train, and we took a train to go up to Denali.
Right.
And then we took a bus from the train to get to what was it
the
called?
next lodge.
The Denali Princess Lodge. At the Denali Princess Wilderness Lodge. And then there is where you go into Denali. So what did we do when we went to Denali?
We did take that bus tour, and that made a couple of stops and saw a little bit of wildlife in that. Unfortunately, it was cloudy. We didn't get to see Denali.
The actual
mountain.
Mountain.
Mountain peak.
Yeah. And Cody and Molly, they went on like a...
Yeah, they did a rafting tour.
Yeah, so that would have been a fun one to do too. But we'll get into more details in our upcoming video on that. And then from there, the bus took you then to Fairbanks.
Right.
So everything was very organized. However, what did you think overall? How did you feel about it? Would you do it again?
I would do it again. It would be nice to have more time at each place. It was very fast paced. It was very well done. I mean, they have it all worked out. They've been doing it a long time. But it was a little tough to just kind of slow down and relax and experience it.
Overall, I'm glad we went. But if I were going to give a recommendation, I would definitely say add more. Don't just have a 3-day land portion. I would add a little bit longer so you have more time.
I agree.
We do have a pro tip for Denali and just basically Alaska. Go for the scenery. Hope you see an animal, wildlife. Because, you know, they make it sound like, that's something I wish I knew. I wish I knew. You're not going to have a moose walking across your...
Yeah, and you may see one and it'll be binoculars and it'll be this big because it's so far away.
Yeah, that was in Glacier Bay. We saw orcas through binoculars. They were that big.
Yes.
Yeah, so definitely go for the scenery and hope to see wildlife. The next thing I wish I knew is that you'll be just fine if you do not get a balcony cabin. Now, everyone says, and I'm sure it's fabulous to have a balcony cabin, but balcony cabins can cost twice as much as an inside cabin. And we took our son and his fiance on the first cruise that we went on, and that would be a lot of money to pay for 2 balcony cabins. So the good part about a balcony cabin, you have your own glacier viewing area. You just roll out of bed and there's, you know, this landscape of Alaska and the glaciers. So that would be great. However, there are plenty of spaces on the ship, like we talked about before, that you can get out there and see the scenery, the glaciers. So don't worry if you don't get a balcony cabin. Pro tip, in addition to those promenade decks, in addition to the observation lounges, the aft or back of the ship is also a good place for glacier viewing because it'll have less wind. And often cruise lines will open up the bow of the ship that you can go out on during glacier viewing days. So there's lots of places that you can go to get a good look. I wish I knew when the best time to cruise to Alaska is. So let's take a look. The months they cruise to Alaska start in April. Not all cruise lines start in April. Norwegian Cruise Line starts in April. April is early, so April and May are shoulder season cruises. Sometimes when you cruise in April, not all the excursions are going to be going, not all the shops are going to be open because it's really early in the season. And then May, that's when most cruise lines start heading to Alaska. We're going in May this year. So April and May are the shoulder seasons. Why would you go in April and May? The shoulder seasons are going to be less crowded because the families, they take their kids on the cruise in the summer when their kids are out, June, July, and August. So during those months, the cruise ships sail above capacity. The way capacity is set up is it's 2 people per cabin. Well, in the summer, when you have kids, there's 3 or 4 people per cabin. So that's what makes the cruise ships more crowded. So April and May are shoulder season. They're less expensive. They will be colder, although I did just get a comment on one of my videos saying May, last year they were in Alaska in May, it was 70 degrees. I'm hoping that will happen. Also in May and April is supposed to be less rainy. So the rainy seasons are more June, July, August, September, and October. But be ready for the rain no matter what. And a little bit later in this video, we're gonna talk about what to pack to be ready for the rain because it rains in Alaska. So the next thing to think about is in June, July, and August, that's when the salmon are running. So who comes to eat the salmon? The bears come to eat the salmon. The eagles come to eat the salmon. Now, you're going to see eagles no matter what. There's a lot of eagles in Alaska. So that's for the salmon. Now, what about the whales? When do they come? The whales are in Alaska in June, July, and August. You know, you're going to see a whale for sure if you're there in July and August. Like the whale, when you go out on whale watching out of Juneau, which we'll talk about in a second in the excursions, they guarantee that you're going to see a whale. And spoiler alert, we saw 23 on our whale watching tour a couple of years ago, so that's great. So June, July, and August are the most popular. They're the warmest seasons, and they are when most people go. And then September and October are late in the season. Now, what about September and October that's kind of nice? There's a possibility, no guarantee, but you might see the northern lights. One of the things I really wish I knew before we went on our first Alaska cruise is what to do in the ports. The ports that we went to, which are the most popular ports, are Ketchikan, Juneau, and Skagway. Ketchikan is the first city that we're going to talk about, and Ketchikan is actually known as the first city. Do you know why it's called the first city?
I'm guessing it's the first one you come to because it's the southernmost one, right?
Yeah, that is exactly why. And it's known as the salmon capital of the world. And the reason why is that it used to have, that was the main industry. They had salmon canneries there. Now, well, since then, it also became a timber, and that is why one of the excursions has to do with logging. And now it's a tourist area. So we're going to give you a few things to do in Ketchikan. And we're going to start with our favorite, which is the
Bering Sea Crab Boat Tour. Yes, this is so much fun. They use a boat that was on the show Deadliest Catch. It's been converted for tourism. And the owner goes on there with you with his deckhands. They send out crab pots and show you how all the equipment runs. They've got a neat live tank that's got different sea creatures in it. You can take out and hold them, interact with them. And then there's a fantastic, I don't know if it was an island or just a piece of land that Native Americans have an agreement with them where they throw fish out into the air and The eagles know that they're coming, and they swoop down and catch it, and they're right there in front of your face. It's amazing. Well worth it.
I definitely wish we would have known about that on our first trip. I enjoyed what we did on our first trip to Alaska, but I would have done this one. That would be my number one pick in Ketchikan.
It's awesome.
The number two pick is what we did do, which was going to the Great Alaskan Lumberjack Show.
That's fun,
and that is so much fun. You could actually do both depending upon how much time your ship is in port. And the Great Alaskan Lumberjack Show, it's pretty inexpensive to do, so it's an easy add-on. So that would be the number two thing that I would suggest to do when you go to Ketchikan. Something else that's good to do is it's definitely, of all the cities, I think that it's the one that most makes me think of the native people of the area. And that's because it has the most totem poles of anywhere in the United States. So there are a lot of different places for you to go view totem poles. And then the last place that I would suggest is going to Creek Street, which is definitely a walkable distance, and it's just a very quaint little area. It's a beautiful place to take photos. And then the last thing for each of these stops, we want to talk about someplace yummy to eat. So where would you suggest that people go in Ketchikan?
The fish and chips is really good. They had some really yummy salmon fish and chips there.
Yeah.
And that's really close to the Lumberjack Show. It was almost right next door to it, and that's close to the port, so it doesn't take much time. It's
Everything in Ketchikan is close by. It's not a very big town, so it's easily walkable.
So next we're going to talk about Juneau. So Juneau's the state capital. Something that's really interesting about Juneau is that there are no roads that go in there and connect it to the outside world. So you have to take a boat or a plane to get there.
Yeah. So what do people do if they when they bring their cars in? Do they have ferries?
They have ferries, yes.
Oh, that's neat. That's neat. All right. What's the number one thing in Juneau?
Whale watching. Very popular for that. They've got a great body of water there, a bay. They get a lot of whales there every season, and they have a great tourism setup there with a lot of boats that go out with knowledgeable captains, and it's a great time.
The next big thing to do in Juneau is the Mendenhall Glacier. It is massive. So you can go to the visitor center, and from the visitor center you can take a 1 mile hike to go to Nugget Falls, which is an amazing place to go. You get really close to these gorgeous and huge falls, so that's really neat. And the Mendenhall Glacier is also the place if you want to go dog sledding on a glacier. So you would take a helicopter onto the glacier, and then you can go dog sledding. So that's really the place. If you want to go dog sledding on a glacier, that's the place to do it. And then the last big thing to do not the last, but another great thing to do is the Gold Belt Tram. So the Gold Belt Tram goes up Mount Roberts, and you get great scenic views of the town and the ships. The one tip that we would give, pro tip, is don't go if it's raining.
Yeah, weather really affects that. If it's raining, it's probably going to be cloudy. If it's cloudy, you're not going to get the great views.
Right, so that is one that I would wait to purchase until you get to Juneau and just buy it there.
Because I don't think it was any less expensive going through a cruise line anyway.
And it seemed like this is one that they'll always have space.
Yeah, it runs constantly all day.
And then where would you want to eat? Ask me that question.
Okay. I know the answer to that.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Okay.
I think you would want to get some crab legs.
Oh, that's right.
Yes. And where would that be?
There's a place called Tracy's, and Tracy's has crab legs and crab cakes. Skagway is like stepping back into the gold rush era. And there is definitely a number one to do in Skagway. What's the number one?
Right, the White Pass Railroad. That's definitely the main thing to do there. I would say that's probably number one.
I agree. So can you tell us a little bit about the White Pass?
So the White Pass Railroad was made to transport the miners up on their first leg of their journey up towards the Yukon gold fields through the White Pass. Very treacherous gorge, rock cliffs, and all these types of things. Very difficult railroad to build, and it's an amazing thing to ride and see all the scenery. And it does feel like you're stepping back in time and can try and put yourself in the shoes of the miners back in the day going on that first leg of their journey.
And a pro tip on that one is to go out and stand outside. What do you call the end?
Oh, on the end, there were platforms on the end of each car. And if you take turns, they are open. They'll let you know when you're on the train when it's okay to go out there. And for most of the journey, you could go out there and stand and get great photos, video, and just smell the fresh air and enjoy the scenery.
I think one of the best pictures is when you get a picture of it going into the tunnel.
Yep.
And one of the things that's really neat is it kind of turns back on itself, so you can get pictures and video of it actually turning on itself. So that is really a great thing to do. The next thing that's really fun to do is, these are definitely excursions you can team up. Most ships are in Skagway for a really long time, as we saw earlier in the video. So another one to do is you go to the Mushers Camp. So at the Mushers Camp, it's like a summer camp for the Itineraries dogs. So there's still a training camp there. And you can go and they have like an outdoor vehicle that they take you, they pull you out on to go just to
the cart with wheels and the dogs pull it. And
yes, so it's really an educational and fun thing
and
to
I
do.
think and if you're a dog lover, it seems like this would be a good one too, because I believe you get to interact with the dogs a little bit.
And the puppies.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great one for kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing about Skagway is that it's definitely a very walkable town.
Right.
So when you go, I would definitely leave time to walk around. They have many places you can pick up a walking tour map. So you can go walking around and they talk about all the different buildings. And then while you're walking around, what should we stop to get for a bite in Skagway?
A nice treat, a doughboy for sure.
A doughboy. It's like a fry bread with cinnamon sugar on it.
Yum.
Delicious. Speaking of excursions, something else I wish I knew is that you do not have to book your excursions through the cruise line. There are some definite benefits to booking through the cruise line. They guarantee you're going to get back to the ship. So the ship will not leave without you. So that's a definite, lots of people are going to book through the cruise line because of that. Another reason to book through the cruise line is just it's easy, right? You just go on the app and pick your excursion and you can do that. Another reason that it's great is, let's just say we've been on a couple different cruises where a port had to be skipped. Well, if you had an excursion in that port, they just refund it automatically. It's just done. So those are some reasons to definitely consider booking through the cruise line, which most people do. However, you can save money by going through a third-party vendor. So there's third-party vendors like Viator.com, ShoreExcursionsGroup.com, and then Alaska has like Alaska Tours, Shore Tours. Those are all, I'll link them in the description below. Those are all opportunities to get maybe different kind of excursions that the cruise line doesn't offer. So say for example, cruise lines generally put more than one activity together when you're in Skagway or in Juneau. Let's just say you only want to go whale watching. You don't want to add on another part of that. You just want to go whale watching. Then you're probably going to have to book through a third party. Things to know about excursions and just getting off the ship in general. When you get off the ship, what I always like to do is I take a photo of the all aboard time. And I make sure if I book an excursion that excursion ends 2 hours before I have to get back on the ship, before all aboard time. The reason why is because that way it gives you that margin, that wiggle room, and it also gives you a time to look around the ports. These ports are very walkable and there's lots to see and do, so I want to make sure I give time for that. Here's something else to know. In your planner, you are going to have port information. This port information is going to give you your pier address, your port agent, their phone number, their email. So let's just say you're out and about and you are like, oh no, the ship is going to leave and I'm worried that I'm not going to get back to the ship on time. Call that port agent. Lots of times there's wiggle room to get you on the ship and they won't leave without you. There's no guarantee, but if the choice is the ship's going to leave without you and you're just going to let it happen, or you're going to get a hold of them, get a hold of them. Now, last time I went on a princess ship, They didn't have it in their planner. They had it as you were walking off the ship. So that was, again, I took a photo of it before I walked off the ship, just so that I had the information. You need to know is that layering is key. This is something that I would wear in Alaska. So jeans on the bottom are your base layer, and have like a t-shirt as a base layer. Then having a fleece or even like a flannel as your next layer of warmth. Then your next layer might even be warmer. So you might have like a puffer jacket to keep you warm. On top of that, no matter what, you want to have a rain resistant and a waterproof layer. So I have a rain jacket, and on top of all that, I put last year a poncho. So the thing that's nice about the poncho is the rain jacket is rain resistant, but when it was raining as much as it was last year, it was going through that. So then you threw on a lightweight poncho and it kept all the rain out. Be ready for rain, because you're in a temperate rainforest. The likelihood is it's gonna rain. When packing, these are some other things you wanna make sure you bring. I love this hat because it's a warm hat and it has a really wide visor. And I like that because when it rains, look at this great trick. You take your hood, you put it over, and that way, if it's raining, it doesn't get in your face. You'll also want to pack a pair of gloves. These gloves are great because they're lined to keep you nice and warm. Something else you might not think about that you'll want to pack is you want to pack a pair of sunglasses. It gets very bright because the air is very clean and clear, and especially if you're going on a glacier, that is bright on your eyes. So you want to make sure you bring a pair of sunglasses. And what about shoes? I just brought leather sneakers. So the leather sneakers kept the water out. There was no reason to bring hiking boots. Now, if you're going hiking, you might want to bring waterproof hiking boots. I'm not going hiking. I'm walking around the town. Maybe it's raining. So I brought just leather sneakers the last 2 years and it was fine. That's what I recommend. Now you might be thinking, Christy, oh my gosh, where's all that stuff gonna fit? Am I gonna have to bring 3 suitcases? No. What you wanna do is consider, you're not gonna really get dirty. So you can wear your jeans over and over. So maybe you bring 2 pairs of jeans instead of 4 pairs of jeans. Just bring 1 flannel or 1 like warmth layer. You're gonna be wearing the same clothes every day. That's okay. That way you're not having to pack 2 large suitcases to get you to Alaska. Want to know more about Alaska cruising? Watch this playlist next where I go into detail about excursions, what to pack, and really everything Alaska.